Start.
Rolling camera A, rolling camera B.
Give me a clap. Perfect.
Okay. I always wanted a cool software company.
This is Ethan Galstad, founder of Nagios. I'm excited to tell you about a free one-day event that's occurring Thursday, the 20th of May.
So I'll go over some high-level things of what Nagios can do. And for those of you using
What is Nagios when they're not familiar with it? It's most often thought of as an IT infrastructure monitoring application. And what that basically means is that it can monitor your network. I want to monitor a website or a Windows server, a Linux server, or a DNS server. They can just choose from a list.
And Nagios plays an incredible role in keeping track.
Nagios has to offer. They're able to do it all, and as new technology keeps
it's been very helpful
increasing
for our business as well.
We really love the product though.
Nagios
We've
is
tried
able to
a lot of other things. We're pretty experienced at what's out there.
Quickly
We're using Nagios
responsibility,
XI.
the
Yes.
capabilities.
Originally, we
Nagios
started
is
with
Now, 6 years later, we're just over 30 employees. I think we'll probably be closer to 35 by the end of this year. And with some of the things that are happening in Nagios and the opportunities that are available to us, I wouldn't be surprised if we hit 50 this time next year.
Ever since I was a teen, I was interested in computers, in software and technology, and I always knew that I wanted to start my own software company someday. And for many years, through my college years, I learned about other software companies, learned about the stories of founders, learned about how they operated, what the culture was like. And I learned from my on-the-job experience with the teams of people that I worked with in different technology jobs. I learned about the things that seemed to work well for our teams, and I tried to kind of put those like in a memory box almost, and just remember those and use those so that someday when I created a company, I could use those principles and apply those to the company that I would create. I got my first big break in my senior year at the university. I got a job at the student newspaper as a sys admin, and it was there I got my first introduction to network monitoring. Now, when we were there, the entire IT team was comprised just of students, and every week we'd go off to a local bar to have our tech meetings. During one of those meetings, the servers back at the office crashed, and nobody knew where to find us. And when we got back, man, we caught hell. And we were forbidden from ever having an offsite meeting again. And I thought to myself, I'm like, hey, I can come up with a tech solution for this. So I went back home and I wrote a simple application that allowed us to monitor the servers. And if something went wrong, we'd be notified on our alphanumeric pagers. And so that was the solution for that. We never got those meetings reinstated, but at least it was my first introduction to network monitoring and its benefits. After I got out of college, a coworker and I were discussing the possibility of offering monitoring services to local businesses. And as part of the investigation of the feasibility of that business, I took a look at what was available on the market in terms of software, and I felt like the software packages that were available were too expensive. So I thought, hey, I could take my computer science skills, put them to use. I could just build my own, and so I did. And I decided to release it as an open source project. which I initially called NetSaint. And I used the name NetSaint because I wanted it to indicate that it was a program that would help people. It would be beneficial to them. So NetSaint was released as an open source project in 1999, and I only thought a dozen or so people would use it actually worldwide. But it turns out thousands of people used it, and then tens of thousands, and eventually hundreds of thousands. It grew far beyond what I thought it would. I thought about quitting the project. It was just a side hobby project for me, and I was busy with a lot of stuff. I almost quit it a few times. But I eventually stuck with it and kept going. It gained popularity. And it got to the point where I got noticed by some companies that wanted to advertise on the website, which is really cool. It allowed me to bring in some side income, which is nice. That side income allowed me to pay off my student loan debt, my credit card debt, build up some savings, and eventually quit my day job because I wanted to start my own company. One of the first big challenges with NetSaint, and that was receiving a trademark letter from a company that said, hey, we've got a trademark of the name Saint. You can't use the name NetSaint anymore. You have to change your software project. And it alarmed me. It was scary to me. It was the first legal type of letter I'd ever gotten. I was just fairly new out of college. And I made the decision to change the name of the software from NetSaint to something else. And that's where I came up with the name Nagios. Nagios was intentionally chosen as an acronym for Nagios Ain't Gonna Insist on Sainthood. That's where I came up with the name. I wanted to leave the NetSaint name behind, and that's the decision I made. That's where the Nagios name came from. Now, as Nagios grew over the years, I started to get noticed by competitors that were on the market. There were a couple of companies that had built commercial solutions around Nagios. They used Nagios as part of their commercial solutions, and they started to reach out to me. They started to say, hey, let's get together. We'd like to meet. We'd like to have a collaboration. We'd like to do something together. And so I met with a couple of them. One big one that I met with was from Europe. One was from California. And I met with both of them over the course of about 2 or 3 years. I ended up actually getting buyout offers from both of them. One buyout offer was over $1 million. And when it came in, it blew me away because $1 million to me was so much money. I was probably only bringing in about $40,000 a year. And so the concept of $1 million just blew me away. But I decided to turn the offer down because I didn't think that the people I'd be working with would be the right fit for me. The California company made me a multi-million-dollar offer, over $7 million, and that was an incredible offer, and it just blew me away when I got that offer. But again, I ended up turning that offer down because I didn't think the people that I was going to be working with would be right for me. I think the people that you're with make an incredible impact on you, and I wanted to be with the right team. I knew that this was my one shot, that I had one shot, and that's it. 2009 was stressful as fuck. It was the fork of Nagios. It was having to turn down a big offer. It was having to make the decision to build a commercial edition. I mean, putting in so many hours, it's like 100-hour plus weeks, I looked like a homeless person. I wasn't showering. I was barely eating. I was doing what needed to be done. And if I wanted things to work out, I had to make this thing happen. And so I was willing to sacrifice, at that point, 3.5 months of my life, just basically just nose to the grindstone. It was just me solo in my 1-bedroom apartment, face to face with these multi-million-dollar competitors that were VC backed. And they were in the same market. They were competing against Nagios. They were competing against me, and so I felt outgunned. Like I didn't have the knowledge, I didn't have the people, I didn't have the skills, I didn't have any of that. I figured I only had a couple months worth of capital left before I'd have to go out and find a real job, quote unquote, and I didn't want that. I had set for myself a goal of getting the product to launch out to market by the end of the year, and I made the deadline. I made it just in time. It was like 6 p.m. New Year's Eve. In 2009, when I finished the first commercial edition of Nagios and got it ready to launch. So that was a deadline, and I made it, and that was the start of the story of the commercial side of Nagios.